Alright, I'm going to talk about some important documents that are in the system. The documents that I will talk about first are the general ledger, accounts payable / receivable, effective rate, screen purchase, and lead. The first document I'm going to talk about is the general ledger. So if you wanted to find it, what you would do is go to Assistant, scroll down to General Ledger, and click on General Ledger. The General Ledger is basically the sheet where most of the entries are going to go down. The General Ledger basically keeps track of each type of transaction associated with the client. For instance, if you go to a client, it's possible that you may test screens, buy screens from him, and sell those screens. So this information should be found in the General Ledger. For instance, you'd have the information on which client you went to. You also would have the information on the defective rate if he tested screens. If you bought screens from him, you would have the screen purchase information. If you sold him screens, you would have the screen sold information. If we owed him money, or he owed us money, we'd have the accounts receivable / payable information. And basically the notes taken on what happened in that meeting would also be there. So just so you know, you've probably seen the text message instructions. When you need to input information to the system, you never need to access it, you just need to send a text message. And the text message you probably send will start with the words General Ledger. What happens is a virtual assistant is going to come in and then input everything into the General Ledger. Then the virtual assistant will put the same entries you just put into the General Ledger into subsidiary ledgers. A subsidiary ledger is basically an account just for one type of transaction. For instance, defective rate. If we wanted to find the defective rate, we could just look at the General Ledger, but it's a lot harder to do that because there's a lot of entries where transactions happened, no defective rate was taken. So if you just wanted to get a quick overview of all the defective rates at once, what you would do is go to Assistant, scroll down to Defective Rate, click on the defective rate. And here we go. What we have is a whole list of the defective rates. So just to be clear, what you're looking at is basically the results of testing. When people go and test screens, what they're going to do is get a count of everything they have. It doesn't matter if it's good, bad digitizer, aftermarket good, if it has white spots, if it's bad. It doesn't matter if we buy them, we just want to know what they have. The reason that we do this is because many times clients will claim that they only have a 90% good rate and only 10% are defective. If this is true, if this is not true, we could always look it up in the defective rate. And if they ever ask, we have the records. So that's why we have the defective rate ledger. The next important thing we have is screen purchase. The reason we have screen purchase is we want to know what we're actually buying from people. The effective rate will tell you exactly what they had, but many times we won't buy everything they had. So it's pretty important to us to know what we actually bought. Screen purchase has a purchase note and a payment note. The purchase note says what we purchased. In this case, we purchased 131 OEM screens, 77 aftermarket screens, and 17 iPhone 5 screens. The payment note tells us how much we paid total and what we paid for each. This is important because if we deal with customers a second time, we want to know what we paid them in the past. So in this instance, we paid $1,604 total. paid 4.5 for aftermarket, paid 7.5 for OEM, paid 20 for iPhone 5. These numbers will also be very important in the future when we're trying to determine the profit we made. You can't figure out the profit if you don't know the cost of what you paid. So that basically explains screen purchase. Again, if we wanted to pull up all the screens, let's just say we wanted to figure out, hey, how many screens have we bought in the past week? Very quickly, you go to Assistant, scroll down to Screen Purchase, click on the Screen Purchase sheet, and all of our purchases should be right there in the Screen Purchase subsidiary ledger. Another interesting thing, just so you know, is when screens we purchase are put into the cracked screen inventory, a virtual assistant will highlight it. So looking at this, we could tell that these entries were not yet put into the cracked screen inventory. We'll talk about the cracked screen inventory later, but this is just a side note. After screen purchase, we have screen sold. Screen sold is very important because if we sell client screens, we want to know which screens we sold them specifically and what they paid for them. If a client tells us that they want a cheaper price or something like that, we need to know what we gave them last time. There's plenty of clients that just lie about what they paid last time. So in the screen sold, we'll have screen sold, where you literally write the numbers of the screens, or the barcode numbers. Then we have revenue. Revenue should be what they paid us or what they were supposed to pay us. An example would be if we didn't accept money from them because we bought screens from them and we exchanged it for credit. Revenue is what they should have paid us. Payment note says what they paid us and how they paid us and what they paid for each. So for instance, they paid us $108 total. They paid $27 each for each screen. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 screens, and they paid in cash. Sometimes we'd have to know that they paid in credit, or that they made a trade, or that we owe them money, or something like that. That's why the payment note is so important. Once again, if we wanted to figure out, okay, how many screens were sold or which screens were sold, we would go to screen sold, we would click on the screen sold, and everything should be right there. Screen sold is also used when we sell screens to Titan. So basically what we could do is, if we wanted to figure out, okay, how much money have we made in the past 2 weeks, we have the revenue. So we could simply scroll up and at a very quick click, there we go. We have all of our revenue. So it's pretty simple to do that as well. The next type of ledger we have is accounts receivable / payable, or accounts payable / receivable. This is a little bit more difficult, but it's pretty important to understand. So basically, accounts receivable is if the company is owed money. For instance, if we give somebody screens and they say they'll pay us next time because they don't have the cash, or the company loans you as an employee money, accounts receivable will increase. It increases because, let's just say in the beginning, we could receive $0 from a client. Now, if they owe us $100 in the future, we will receive $100 It is possible to receive $100 more. That's why if people owe us more money, there's an accounts receivable increase. Now, if they pay us that money back, there's an accounts receivable decrease. The next type is accounts payable decrease and accounts payable increase. You may say, hey, why isn't it increase and decrease again? Well, when we say payable decrease, we really mean debit. We're getting into debits and credits. To make it simple, just live with that. If there's an accounts payable increase, we as a company owe money. When you put screens into the cracked screen inventory, the company will owe you money. So the accounts payable increase will go up. There will be an entry in accounts payable increase. If you are paid money that you were once owed, there will be an accounts payable decrease. The same thing with our clients. If we owe our clients money, there will be an accounts payable increase. If we pay off money that we owed our clients, it will be an accounts payable decrease. And then we basically always have to put a receivable payable note, because if we see these accounts changing, we want to know why. Why are they changing? Once again, if we wanted to quickly find out how much money do people owe us right now, we would go to Assistant and Accounts Payable / Receivable, click on it, and there you go. We could simply sum up everything at the bottom and figure out how much money is owed to us. This brings us to the next type of sheet, which is lead. The lead information will contain much information about the client. Leads are categorized by region. Leads are supposed to contain all of the important information about a client, all of the transactions that happen with the client. That's why anytime anything happens, you're just going to put a note at the end, and the virtual assistant's supposed to insert that into the lead. So for instance, if we wanted to see what was going on with the client, let's look at Rinku. Lead. To find it, you go to lead, and then you got to look at the lead sheet. So lead, Long Island. Here's where we can find most of the information. So we're looking at Rinku. Right here we could say that on the 16th we met with Rinku, we purchased screens from Rinku, because we bought 398 screens. On the 22nd, I showed up late, I tested screens with Rinku, he wanted a machine, I didn't give him a machine. We purchased 26 iPhone 5 screens from him, he told us that we could sell us T-Mobile SIM cards for $7 each, he told us he could sell us glass for $7 for a single, and then we got pizza with him. And then on the 2nd, we called him. He said he would meet us tomorrow in the morning so I could get the tester. He also said that he had about 100 screens. And on the 7th, we met with his brother, blah, blah, blah. The reason why we do this is we could quickly get an idea of what's happening with Rinku. We've met with him basically almost every 5 days. So we meet with Rinku pretty frequently. If he wonders what happened, we have a real note of what's going on. So just to reaffirm everything, the lead information goes in the lead sheet, and then you have to look at everything going on. We have Long Island leads, Florida leads, Atlanta leads, and everything's going to only get bigger. If you ever want to know where they're from, usually the information can be found on the lead sheet part of the client information. We do that to make it easier. So we've talked about the general ledger, accounts payable, receivable, effective rate, screen purchase. We also talked about screen sold. And we talked about lead. And for now, that's where we're going to keep it at. Those are some pretty important ledgers or documents, whatever you want to call them, that you should really know about.